Hey everybody, welcome to Barbecue by Biggs. I'm Aaron, and today we got us a brisket meatloaf. So we're gonna take this brisket, we're gonna grind it up, we're gonna add some flavor to it, bathe it in smoke, and you know what? It's gonna turn out awesome. You guys come along with us. Stay tuned. All right, got the brisket out of the freezer. It's been in the freezer for about 45 minutes to an hour or so, just to get it really, really cold. Get this out of here. So we're gonna trim this down. We're not gonna trim all the fat off, but we are gonna take this hard fat off and some of this old looking meat on the side. We're gonna cut it into squares. If you look, whatever your grinder is, we're gonna try to make our chunks about as big as our throat on our grinder. Our chunks might be a little bit bigger than yours, depending on what size you have in your throat. So you wanna make sure that whatever chunks that you make them, they'll fit down in the throat fairly easy. So we're gonna make ours to be able to fit down our throat of our 3/4 horse carnivore grinder here. Then we're gonna take that old looking meat off the side here. A little bit more of that decal fat off. Go back here. It's pretty good, make a big old chunk there. All right, that should be good. So now we'll just cut it in chunks, about that big. Make sure you have a good sharp knife when you're doing this. Then we'll just get it cubed up. So we'll get this cubed up and I'll bring you back here in just a minute. All right, so we've got it all cubed up. It's ready to go into the grinder. We're gonna put it in the freezer for about another 45 minutes to make sure it's really, really cold, and we'll bring you guys back for the grind.
All right, now we're gonna get this brisket ground up. We're using a 10mm plate for this grind. We are gonna grind it 2 times. So we got the cold meat out of the freezer. We're gonna run it through the first time, and then what we're gonna do is put it back in the freezer for 10 or 15 minutes, and then we're gonna run it through a second time. The consistency that we're looking for is the consistency of regular ground beef that you get from the store, and a second grind usually grinds that fat to where it is the consistency that we're looking for. So we're just gonna take the rest of this, get it through the grinder, and then we'll be ready to put that meatloaf together.
All right, we got the brisket ground up. Now we're ready to put the seasoning in. So we're using the PS Seasoning 408B. This thing does 25 pounds. We measured it out. We got a 5-pound hunk of meat here that we're gonna put it in. So we're using about 10 ounces or so of the seasoning. So we're also going to use the PS Seasonings high temp pepperjack cheese. I'll leave a link in the description below for that too. It's awesome to add in on any kind of meatloaf. They have all kinds of flavored cheese if you don't like pepperjack. So we'll bring you in, let you see how we do this. So we got 5 pounds of ground brisket. We have 10 ounces. We're right at 9.7 ounces of the PS Seasoning seasoning. So we're going to take that, just go ahead and mix that in. We also have 1/2 of a yellow onion. We're gonna add that in. Now this PS Seasoning mix does have some dehydrated onion in it, but we want that fresh onion for that fresh onion flavor too. We got 2 large eggs. I'm just gonna crack those right over the top here. All right. We're gonna take this ketchup. Just gonna take it, just give it a good old squirt right in there. You don't have to measure it. Like to add ketchup on the inside. We're also gonna make a topping for it with ketchup and barbecue sauce, but we're gonna put a little bit of that in there, and then we're gonna get this mixed up, and then we're gonna mix the cheese in. So I'll just grab in, just mix it real good. You don't want to squeeze it down when you mix it because you don't want it too compacted, but you want to make sure you get a good mix in there. So fold it over and fold it in on itself just like you would if you were folding together some dough or something of that nature. So we'll get this folded in top of each other and we'll bring you back. All right, we got it folded in real good. We're gonna go ahead and add this cheese. Like we said before, this is high temp pepperjack cheese. We're gonna add in 1 pound. Just add that in. This is frozen, it's from a frozen state. So it's still a little bit chunked together in some places, and that's okay. We're just gonna fold this in without pushing real hard on it. Don't wanna break that cheese up in little pieces. We just want it to be in those little cubes when we put this thing together. All right, we got those folded in on top of each other. Now we're just gonna take some SPG. We got Suckle Buster's SPG here. Just gonna put in about a teaspoon or so. Mix that in. We're gonna add some more seasoning to the outside of this once we get the loaf put together. All right. let's put the loaf together. So like I said before, we got a quarter pan here. We're gonna go ahead and get this in here. We're gonna do it pretty tight. If you don't like your meatloaf dense, then you just barely put it in. If you like a denser meatloaf, which I prefer, you wanna push it down a little bit. You don't wanna go too much because you don't want like a hard piece of meat, but you definitely get it packed together. Makes it easier to form in here. And you know what? Makes it a better loaf. Again, this was 5 pounds of ground brisket. You don't have to use brisket if you don't have a way to grind it. But I tell you, once you start grinding brisket instead of using ground beef, you won't ever go back. But if you don't, you can use regular ground beef to do this. We did grind this twice through the 10 millimeter. So we got the loaf made. So all we're gonna do now is we're gonna flip this thing over on top of our smoking tray that we have here. You can use a smoking tray. You can use any kind of flat tray if you want. I prefer these with these holes in them because it allows smoke to get through. You can pick these up on Amazon. Hell, we'll leave you a link in the bottom if you're interested. But these things allow smoke to come through. Gets good penetration. You can use a regular pan. You could even leave it in this pan if you want to, but you won't have that same smoky flavor. So we'll get this turned over. And then we'll just hold that one side of that paper. And there you go, we got a loaf. What I like to do once we get it out is push in the edges down here so that it won't come apart. Kind of form it a little bit more. Push together any of those spots that might come loose. You know what? She's looking good. Perfect. So now we're just gonna take this SPG, the Suckle Busters SPG, and we're just gonna give it a good little dose of that before we get it on there. Get that, get the sides, back and front. Got a bunch of meat there. It's okay if you get a little bit more than you want. All right, let's get it on. All right, guys, we got the brisket meatloaf ready to go onto the smoker. We're smoking ours on a Lone Star Grills Mini at 250 degrees using B&B charcoal and cherry chunks. Now, you might be using an offset, you might be using a Komodo, you might be even using a pellet grill. Just 250 degrees at whatever flavor you like to see. So let's get it on the smoker. All right, we're gonna get it on the pit. We're running at 250 degrees. Gonna smoke it on the middle rack here. We are gonna put a couple of pans with a 1/2 inch of water in here. This is a water smoker at the bottom. Just don't want all that grease in the bottom. And I feel that get a little bit more moisture coming right from above it. So put those couple of pans underneath it. We got that meatloaf right there. It's looking so good. Put it right in the middle. All right, we're gonna put this to bed for about 1 hour and 15 minutes before we check in on it. We'll see you guys then. All right, we're about 1 hour and 15 minutes in. Don't expect any color or anything yet. We're just gonna get a probe in it so we can monitor the temps from the inside. We're looking at about 150 degrees is what we're shooting for internal temperature. That'll be a good medium well. That's kind of what our family likes. If you want something different, you're welcome to bring it to whatever you'd like, but medium well works pretty good on a meatloaf. So let's get in there. All right, so we've been rolling along at 250 degrees for about 1 hour and 15 minutes. Oh yeah, it's got a little bit of color. Let me bring you in and let you look at it. So we got a little color on it. You can see that cheese coming through. Looking good. So let's get a probe in there. We'll put that probe right in the middle. You want that to be right in the middle so you can read the temperatures on the inside. So we'll get this put back up, 250 degrees. We'll bring you guys back in about 1 hour or so, maybe 1 hour and 15 minutes, depending on the internal. We'll look for about 140 on the inside before we bring back to look at it again. See you then. So we reached 140 degrees internal. We made a slather for the top of this meatloaf. It's basically 1/2 cup of ketchup, 1/4 cup of your favorite barbecue sauce, and a tablespoon of W sauce or Worcester sauce to go in there. Now, the W sauce will thin it out. You need to make sure that it's thin enough where it'll drop on, but not too thin so it'll run off. So I put a tablespoon in there and it worked out perfectly. If you like it a little bit more runny, you might want to put a little bit more W sauce in there. So we'll get this meatloaf slathered up. All right, so again, been rolling at 250 degrees. We're about 2 hours and 30 minutes in. We're at 140 degrees internal. Oh yeah, it's looking good. Let me bring you in here and let you look at the color of this thing before I slather it up. Oh yeah, the color looks good. You can see those cheese bits in there still holding together. Got some onion bits. Yeah, it's looking great. It is high temp cheese. The one thing about using high temp cheese is you can take it up to 140, 150 degrees without it running out of your meatloaf. So that's why I use high temp cheese when I do these meatloafs. So we'll get this slathered up and get it ready to go. So we got the slather together. Again, that's a half a cup of ketchup, quarter cup of your favorite barbecue sauce, and then we use some tablespoon of W sauce to thin it out. So we'll just get this slathered right on top of this. So I'm probably gonna come out and do this twice. So we're just gonna go with a thin slather all the way around, just so it has a good coating on it. All right, so I have about that much left. Looks like I have enough to come back out here in about 15 minutes or so, put another coating on the top, and then let that go for about 15 minutes and it'll be done. So we're getting very, very close. See you guys in a minute. All right, internal temperature's at 150.5. Oh yeah, she's looking good. Pull that out so you can see it. Let me bring you in here so you can look at it. That slather really set in well. Took on some dark tones. That's a good looking meatloaf. All right, so we're gonna put it on a pan. We're gonna cover it with tin foil, let it cool down a little bit. We'll bring you guys back for the cut. All right, everybody, after 3 hours, 15 minutes, this monster thing is done. Let me bring you in here and let you look at this thing. Holy moly. That slather set in well. Man, the color looks great. It's a good looking meatloaf. All right, I want to recap it again. 5 pounds. We used the PS Seasoning Meatloaf seasoning, cooked over B&B charcoal, cherry chunks on the IBS. Went for about 3 hours and 15 minutes or so, and man, it turned out great. Let me bring you guys in here for that slice and that taste. All right, let's just take a slice of this thing right quick. Oh my goodness. Juice just pouring out of that. You spin that open so you can see it. Oh yeah. Looking great. Man, oh man. All right, let's get a taste of this thing. All right, so get a cut of this thing. Get us a taste of it. Let's get a taste of this thing. Oh yeah. You see all those little pieces of cheese? They kind of stay together. They're a little melty. Tell you, man. You guys got to give this one a try. I say that about every time, but really, you need to give this one a try. See you guys on the next cook.